it's not going to stabilize currencies no matter how much gold a central bank puts on its balance sheet, because in order for that to matter, it has to be exchangeable at a fixed rate, or else it's irrelevant. That's gold bugs like to look at. Oh, well, look at that. Central banks are buying all this gold. That means that we're going back to a gold standard. It doesn't mean we're going back to a gold standard. Nobody's going to go back to a gold standard. Gold standard is going to be a bottom-up thing. Anything denominated in dollars is now worthless, and gold and silver are the monies that are circulating. So whoever has gold and silver will be the new government, if we can call them government. They'll be the power, and hopefully my aspiration is that most people in the world that stack gold and silver are good people, because we're the ones who are doing this now, and we're the ones who see it coming, and everyone else is like, oh, what are you talking about? The dollar is king, and they don't know what they're talking about, and let them fall. Let the people who have gold and silver take charge, and we should see a new world order that way. But it's not going to be BRICS gets together and says, oh, we're going back to a gold standard, now we're going to be in charge, or the Fed saying, you know what, this is true, the dollar is really gold, and we're going to go back to that, and everything's going to be fine. It's not going to be fine, because the inflation has been 50 years in the making. And if we go back to the Great Depression, how long was the inflation? It was from 1921, which was the post. There was an extreme deflationary event, 1920, 1921. It was even worse than the crash of 29. And from 1921 to 1929, that was just 8 years of inflation. That was it. And then after 8 years of inflation, there was a crash, and you had a depression. We're talking about now 50 years of inflation. So 8 times, let's say 6, it's going to be 6 times as worse as the Great Depression. China is on top of America, or more powerful, because they produce the stuff and America produces the dollars. But it's all a circle. Like, it goes together. And once the Chinese can't continue their economic system as they have. So they have to, they're also part of the inflationary system. So when it collapses, they have to reorganize their entire economy. And that requires everyone who's participating in it now to be destitute and find something else to do, because you have malinvestments. This is what Mises said. Like, the boom, it alters the entire structure of the economy. So people are doing things that they wouldn't otherwise be doing if money was honest. So everything that the Chinese are doing now is because of the inflationary system, and nothing is going to survive it. Right? It's not even clear if the massive pieces of capital that are there to feed American consumerism in the trade based on the dollar, if they're even going to survive the process. Because in order to keep humongous pieces of capital alive, you need humongous pieces of credit, or chunks of credit, that you can only create through the inflationary system. So everything's going to have to break down into more localized economies. Doesn't mean there's not going to be international trade, but it's going to be much less of it. And the trade that you're going to see in the world after the collapse of the dollar is much more locally based. And you'll have islands of sound money in local communities. I'm almost 100% sure. And I have to say almost, because I can never be 100% sure of anything. But I'm almost 100% sure that when Japan falls, the entire system will fall very shortly after, within days or weeks. I don't know if it's going to be the first, or something else is going to cause Japan to fall, but that doesn't even matter. What matters is that Japan is like the fulcrum of the entire Keynesian system. If Keynesianism works, then Japan proves it, because they're at like 260% GDP, and they do nothing but print money. And the spirit of the kamikazes and the samurai have kept this all together. Japan is I don't want to say Japan is. I don't really know much about the Japanese culture or the people. I've never been there, but from American portrayals of Japanese culture, I sort of maybe understand that they are good at acting in a single unit and being on the same page with each other. And when the yen falls, when Japanese government bonds fall, Japan is going to dump all of its dollars, and the dollar is going to fall shortly after that. I think it's within months now, from what I've seen. Because the Bank of Japan, I think, owns the Bank of Japan. The balance sheet is 80% Japanese government bonds, which means the value of the yen depends on that 80%. The rest is like foreign currency cash and some gold. So when the value of Japanese bonds goes down, it doesn't help the yen, because the yen has to go down with the bonds that are backing it. So how can the yen go up? It can't. really, other than small knee-jerk reactions from algorithms based on some news that lasts maybe a day or a week or something. But we're in the end stage of this, and when Japan falls, the rest of the Keynesian system will fall with it. Spare dollars are basically the dollars that are left over that couldn't make it into the banking system in 2020 and 2021. For whatever regulatory reasons, or they had no place to put them because the cash has to be backed by assets on the other side of the balance sheet, and they couldn't get any more assets in because their balance sheet was full. I don't know exactly how it works, but for whatever reason, they couldn't put this cash in the banks, so they give it back to the Fed, and it's called a reverse repo. So that account, the amount of reverse repos outstanding are now at $1.07 trillion, and they're down about $1.1 trillion in October. So it was about $500 billion in October. So it's about the rate that we've been going since October is about 500 billion down. So that at that rate, about 2 months before they go to zero, or maybe 3 months if you want to say that the rate's going to slow down a little bit. Maybe it will, maybe it won't. But so I say 2 to 3 months before the reverse repos are now zero. And then what happens when the Treasury, auctions off another set of bonds or treasuries and there's no more money in the reverse repo facility? Who's going to buy them? Not the Fed, not anyone else, because the money supply is shrinking, even though the reverse repos are flowing into the system, which means the deflationary forces are humongous. In order to open a new loan, to originate a new loan, you have to use the current interest rates, which were something like 6-7% if you're going to get an equity line or a credit line from a bank. So no one's going to want to pay that. So they're just paying down their old debt, not issuing new debt. And that's why the money supply falls. So imagine how much the money supply falls when there's no more reverse repos coming into the system. It's going to even contract even harder. So at that point, something's going to break. The Fed's going to have to print a lot more. And that should be the end of the dollar. 2 to 3 months away, maybe 4, maybe 5, whatever it is, doesn't matter. It's coming. Keep the minimum in a bank. I'd say keep a few months worth, maybe 3 or 4 months worth. Keep replenishing it after a few months. Make sure you have enough to pay your immediate bills. But when we started to the road to hyperinflation, you'll know it, and you'll gradually lower your balances in your bank account until you just want to keep them as close to zero as long as possible and not have any balance in there. And that is hyperinflation. Hyperinflation is just basically the lack of willingness to keep cash in the bank. So we'll maybe start at 6 months, and then we'll go to 5 and 4, and but eventually it's just gonna explode. And I think when the Fed turns around and has to print when those reverse repos run dry. So I don't think that we're going to see like 1 month, like let's say 10%, and the next month 15, and the next month 30. I think we're going to see like 1 month, maybe 10, and the next month like thousands.